Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 237, the Dallas edition. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. Today is July 9th, 2016.
Okay, as I alluded to in the intro, I'm in Dallas. There's no guitar behind me. I'll talk more about the guitar next week. I'm getting lots of emails about it. We'll deal with that next week. I'm in Dallas, and if you've not been hiding under a rock for the last 3-4 days, there's been another mass shooting in this country. We had Orlando, San Bernardino, and you can just go through the list. And I was front and center in front of my hotel TV with 5 Dallas channels, all had cameras on the scene, and my little iPad police scanner. I'm a journalist. I need to know everything as it's occurring, and I watched the events unfold. And it took about a day later, as I'm watching the reaction to this, to figure out Dallas does things differently. This is Dallas. And at the end of everything, within 24 hours, I was waiting for the police chief and the mayor and everybody to do the standard response, which is, we need gun control. This man, Michael Johnson, walked through the streets of downtown Dallas with an AK-47 shooting police officers right outside, a couple blocks away from Daley Plaza.
Was it an AR-15 or an AK-47?
AR-15. I didn't pay much attention because it wasn't talked about.
Well, thank goodness, at least used a domestic weapon. I mean, he didn't buy using some foreign gun.
And so, amongst this tragedy, you watch somebody, slug Dallas. Dallas fell to the ground. Dallas got up, shook off the dust, and continued on. Nobody was licking their wounds. Nobody was blaming inanimate objects. Nobody was blaming Obama. Nobody was blaming Trump or Black Lives Matter, because Dallas has been at the forefront of the struggle with race relations for a long time, and this was an outlier. This man, probably has a mental illness. Walked through the streets, and it's just not what the race relations look like in Dallas. It was completely foreign, and everybody's surprised and really disappointed. You're seeing interviews with the protesters that night, and they're like, this doesn't happen in Dallas. This is Dallas. We don't have people running around shooting cops, and we don't have cops shooting black people. This is Dallas. This doesn't happen here. And so it was really interesting to see Dallas get up and brush off the dust and continue on. And it seems like a very proud city that's doing things differently. It wasn't playing the blame game, which we see so quickly attributed to other mass shootings, George.
Correct. The only person to come out quickly on an issue that was extraneous was the Catholic Bishop of Dallas, who called for a ban on assault rifles. Well, that issue has been going through ad nauseum, and if someone can actually define an assault rifle, that'd be wonderful. And he also urged that mentally ill people not have access to guns. And I don't think anybody would disagree with him on that.
No. Please help define mentally ill people, and please help define assault weapons.
But it's to me, it's fascinating, the local reactions to the Dallas shooting, the recent shootings in Baton Rouge and Minneapolis, and the Orlando shooting. I can speak to the Orlando issue as a local, is that the local take, the local response, the local voice of leaders is very different from what we hear from the talking heads on television. Mm-hmm. In Dallas, the Bishop of Dallas, George Sumner, Episcopal Bishop of Dallas, after that night of the shooting, put out a remarkably good statement of pastoral sensitivity and integrity that really addressed the issues. And then within a day or two afterward, you get bishops in San Diego to Washington, D.C. putting out just mindless drivel where they're basically, they have an idea, this is something that supports their idea, therefore they put out a statement. well, I don't mean to. We will always have feckless idiots in the House of Bishops of the Episcopal Church, so I don't know if that's
Really?
news.
I'm sorry to hear that. Well,
but just as Greg Brewer rose to the occasion in Orlando, so has George Sumner risen to the occasion in Dallas from a church perspective. And as you're seeing on the ground in Dallas, the people are not responding the way the network news and the cable news would have us believe they are.
Yeah, I mean, CNN is giving a different story in Dallas than the local channels. The interviews that they show in local channels are not appearing on the big cable networks. And I had not seen this disparity in news. You said when you were in Orlando that you guys are getting a different story. The locals are reporting differently. And here in Dallas, the locals are reporting absolutely differently, even than Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC. It's a different story. And I want to talk a little bit about citizen journalism. It's interesting. We've come to the age now where everybody has a cell phone. And one of the things George and I do is we offer in Anglican Unscripted a news analysis. It's a little opinion, a little news, a little humor from two guys who really don't know what they're doing. That you watch is wonderful. That our wives actually let us scurry off on a Saturday morning.
We do know what we're doing here. We do know it, but we don't do it very well.
That's right. Well,
we do know
the fact that our wives let us go sit in front of our computers and talk to each other is awesome. But what I saw in Baton Rouge and what I saw in Minneapolis was not what you guys saw. The whole world said they saw the shooting in Baton Rouge. The whole world said they saw a police officer shoot a man in Minneapolis. And I'm looking at the video, and I don't see that. As a videographer, I watched there's two videos taken in Baton Rouge. There was an incident where a man was resisting arrest. Two police officers piled on. There was a scary scene where an officer pulled out his gun, and immediately the wise citizen journalist moved their camera. I would have tried to, because they were afraid they're going to get shot. They hid in the car. They went back in the store. And citizen journalists are not going to go the full route and get themselves killed. That's very smart. In Minneapolis, the girlfriend of Mr. Castle pulled her phone out seconds after he was shot. So we didn't see the event. So we're missing the actual shooting in Baton Rouge, and we're missing the actual shooting in Minneapolis. Yet we think we saw it. We think, because we were told by the news this is a shooting, that we saw it, George.
And what we have is the race hucksters in the church and in the government and in the media originally say two black men shot, therefore two similar incidents. Mm-hmm. And you're a professional videographer. You know what you're looking for. You know what to see. I have professional news background. And one of the things that you would put out is, okay, who are the victims? What's the context here? And in other words, the victim in the shooting in Minneapolis, after investigation, he's an upstanding citizen who had a legal carry permit. This looks like it could be a case of manslaughter of the policeman responding inappropriately. Mm-hmm. The case in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, police were called to a convenience store in the late of night with a man brandishing a gun in the parking lot, and they had an incident. And the man who died is a convicted child rapist who has some outstanding court dates for felonies, and is a thoroughly bad character. Now that doesn't mean he deserves to be killed out of hand by the police, but you need to have a professional journalist would give the greater context. Were the policemen involved rookies? Were these long-term officers? Were they local deputy sheriffs from the Hooterville Police Department, or were they trained city policemen?
Well,
just throwing something up out there without providing the context and the background does not allow people to be informed properly of what's going on.
And that's just it. I mean, video doesn't lie. One of the magics of video is I can post the video, and in most cases it can speak for itself. There are times when you don't have the whole video that you need to add the context. And it took a while for people to finally say, well, This guy in Baton Rouge has had incidents in the past, and he's not the greatest character in the world. On the other hand, the guy in Minneapolis, outstanding individual, works at a school, had a carry permit, and very well had been killed by the police by mistake. And so
one of my parishioners is a retired New York City policeman, and he tells me that New York City police has 30,000 of the finest police officers in the United States or in the world.
There's more than that.
And then he goes on to say there are 35,000 police officers.
Okay.
There are 900,000 policemen in the United States, and every day there are 3,000 stops, arrests, frisks, traffic.
Citizen transactions.
Citizen transactions. There are bad cops. There are unfortunate incidents that are badly handled, people badly trained. Questions are asked, could they not use tasers or some sort of non-lethal force? I'm not an expert in this area. I don't know. Where I'm coming from is my knowledge of how journalism should work, and the actual, basically dreadful cable news coverage that starts with an unfiltered film, unedited, placed in no context, and then you have these talking heads come on who already have an idea of what they want to say, and they try to fit little particular facts into the story. Well, that's called propaganda.
It is. I mean, a great example is CNN and Malaysia Air. With just the evidence of a missing signal on radar, they had 3 weeks, 24/7 coverage of a missing plane that launched out of Singapore, went to 36,000 feet, took an abrupt left, and disappeared. For CNN, they're like, "Oh my Lord, we can work this," and that's what cable news does. Is it focuses its lens on something until you believe it, and that's not what local news does. Local news is so much different. They have so many stories and variety they can play with. They don't have to focus like a CNN, a Fox News, and MSNBC.
The other thing is that there's the herd mentality of journalism. If one person says something, everybody likes to run after that. Kevin, one of the things when I was young in this field was, do you remember when a little girl fell down a well in Texas?
Yeah, that's right. Was it Haley? What was her name?
She was alive, and this thing went on. It was as if the Russians had landed in New Jersey.
Well, there were more reporters than there were people watching the event.
Yes.
Satellite trucks everywhere. Yeah.
Sometimes the herd runs totally out of the interest. Just as, we can joke about the Malaysian Airlines thing where CNN just didn't know when to drop it. Now, people will say that about us. I mean, why do you guys keep talking about Anglicanism? Just drop it, fellow. The Episcopal Church is dead. Well, but I think we really need to think for yourself. Use your critical senses and don't run with the herd. Don't repeat the platitudes. Don't listen to these fools who have an agenda that they want you to follow. Stick to the facts and think for yourself. That's called being a Protestant.
What are you doing? I still read my Bible in Latin. Whatever. Okay, so that's part of what we've watched here. We're up to 13 minutes. We should cover some Anglican news real quick. 14 minutes. Let's talk about. There's a meeting going on. The province of Canada is having their meeting this week. What's going on, George?
Well, Kevin, one of the things I learned early on from the editor of the Living Church is who I once called him and said, "I've got a big story from Canada," and he snorted and said, "There is no such thing as a big story from Canada." It's a contradiction in terms. Canadian General Synod is meeting in Toronto this week, and they're going to take up the issue of gay marriage. There's a big push by the Liberals to finally have the National Canadian Church sign off on gay marriage. Already a number of dioceses have gay marriage, gay clergy, gay pride week. I mean,
it's happening.
You get the point.
Not on paper, but it's happening. Yeah.
However, the House of Bishops in their February meeting said the numbers aren't there to support this. Now, what's going on? A third of the Canadian bishops are in favor, a third are opposed, and a third are firmly on the fence. They're being Canadians. The Canadians, and my sense of things, and I probably will be wrong, is that there's only a moral victory to be had if you get gay marriage, because it'll enable the people in Vancouver and Montreal to say, look, we finally achieved something that we've had locally for years, and we forced those silly people in Fredericton and Moncton and Medicine Hat to finally force them to have gay marriage, even though nobody wants that.
Right.
That's the moral victory. The consequence will be that the Canadians will have some sort of discipline. Yes, I know that the discipline from Canterbury is sort of a joke, but it'll embarrass them, and Canadians blush easily. They get embarrassed. They don't like to stand out in a crowd. And I don't think they're going to want to take the hit. So what is the path of least damage? Not giving the left a moral victory, or allowing them to keep their local gay marriage but not have the spotlight focused on them by the Anglican community.
It is interesting because Canada was actually at the forefront of, these. They were doing it under the sheets before anybody else.
Michael Ingham, 99, 2000, 2001. This was all the big thing.
Yeah.
It's 15 years they've been having to do this stuff. Well, meanwhile, Kevin, news south of the border. The Mexicans had their General Synod in Monterrey.
There's a Mexican Episcopal Church. Okay,
yes,
I've not been paying attention.
They had their, and we have viewers from the Mexican Episcopal Church.
That's true, we do. Yes, we do.
And the Mexican Mexico has the problems we have, but multiplied by 10 in terms of violence. Mm-hmm. And they have persecution of religious minorities, meaning Protestants. They have police corruption, governmental corruption, persecution, people exploiting the peasants. And the Mexican church is basically trying to take a stand and not focus on saying, here is one group that we are going to raise up above all others, but Christ died to save all, not just the politically correct oppressed group of the moment. Mm-hmm. So the Mexicans are calling for justice and peace, and hoping that the Lord will prevail and that God will save Mexico. It's
interesting. I mean, of all the countries over here on this side of the world, Mexico has the most trouble with law issues, the rule of law. We're not far behind. We're
getting there.
We're getting there, but
Mexico, there really is a rule. One law for the rich, one law for the poor.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're getting close in the United States.
I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 237 of Anglican Unscripted.